If you haven't seen Disenchantment Part 5 on Netflix yet, don't worry too much about spoilers, because the final season was awful and I'm about to rip it apart. Hey guys, long time no see. If this is somehow the first time that you're seeing my face, I'm McGann. I run the Fangirl channel, and I really don't think I've done a face video since I got divorced, so new experience here. Also, my car was stolen this summer. If you would like to join channel memberships, every little penny helps me out right now, so thanks. Anyways, I have spent years defending Disenchantment, and I've always said that it's a funny, fresh show if you just get past all the internet trolls who are going on about it negatively. Plus, after you get through the first season, it really starts becoming more of a serialized show over a more simplistic A-B plotline series. And I thought it was great. I was there for it. And I was so intrigued by all the little hidden pieces and details going on all over the place. I mean, details like Alva Gunderson building elevators that go to hell, while Dreamland is kept in the dark about Steamland's existence? There has got to be some great reveals to explain these things. And since I'm a huge Futurama fan, where you can see Nibbler's shadow in episode 1, I trusted that Matt Groening, however you say it, would make us something that would be on par with Gravity Falls when he put Disenchantment together. But we were failed. Holy hexadecimal, we were flat out wronged. Now, in Disenchantment's defense, the story got very big and very convoluted through parts 3 and 4. And rumor had it for years that it was supposed to be a 6-part series, yet Disenchantment has now officially ended after part 5. So if another season was intended, but for some reason revoked, that would explain at least a little bit of why season 5 is so all over the place and weird. However, in my opinion, the bulk of season 5 plays out like the series was given a new showrunner, and that showrunner never read the series Bible. If you haven't seen Disenchantment Part 5 yet, I'm about to go over all of the issues that I found maddening. And I wish I could quickly recap Part 5 for you, but there's just too many plot lines, characters, and moving parts, so I'm about to become the spoiler queen. Alright, I'm gonna be reading the notes off my computer. Bear with me, please. I'm having a lot of issues with my new iMac and trying to get screenshots and clip recordings like I used to be able to do. So, problem 1. Core issues building for years in the show never get addressed. The Og family curse? We have no idea what that curse was supposed to do or why it even came about. There is a throwaway line in there where the crones from Maru say something to Bean like, "Sorry, we cursed your family." But it's not even clear if the crones meant the Og family curse or something with Bean's other side of the family. I mean, her mom's side of the family ran the kingdom of Maru. There was lots to curse there, right? We had Dagmar, Cloyd, and Becky, all from Maru, calling the shots there, so there's a lot to wish ill, I would imagine. Yet we're given zero clarity. 2. The big war of the Og family stealing Dreamland from the elves was never addressed again. We really have no idea what happened, why the elves were kicked out of Dreamland, what the humans did, why they even came into power. We have no clue. Why even introduce this as part of the backstory if we're not going to find any fulfilling meaning to it? 3. Dagmar's long-standing family debt to Hell is never elaborated on. And in previous seasons, it was referenced as something like a 100-year-long debt that was way overdue. And now this debt to Hell is spoken of as if Dagmar made the pact herself. What? We know Dagmar wasn't immortal because that was a plot point in part 5. 4. After we get some lighter buildup about Queen Maria Beanie, Dagmar's mother, we never get back into that story arc or why she was able to wear the crown with the screws in it. Was she a witch? Was she crazy? Was she mean? Was this all a hoax? I have no idea, and neither do you. 5. In Dreamland, there is that crystal ball that records everything in the room, but now suddenly that ball can also take you back in time? And Lucy is the one who tells us about this. So where was this information during other pivotal plot points? Like when Bean was being accused of offing Zog, or when Tess put the crystal ball in as an eyeball, why not just rewind time and get her actual eye back? It was just such a weird thing to do that had never been explained before, and then it goes away as soon as it's used for that one episode. 6. Lucy also turns out out to be the son of Satan, like the actual blood-related son. And Lucy had no clue who his parents were this entire time, even though his full name turns out to be Lucille Lucifer Jr. Why are so many of the plot points in Part 5 revolving around secret parentage? Even Porky, this little insulary character, turned out to be abandoned in the woods as a baby. And it's just like, why did we waste time with info dumps like that when main characters didn't get enough time to resolve their own stories properly? 7. While we are talking about Satan, why did he have 2 forms? He had the real suave-looking guy who was at the wedding, and then his reflection was the big fat devil-y guy. That went nowhere and turned out to be worth nothing when it was initially provided like some kind of sinister secret. 8. Not to mention, Satan does his swirling beach ball eyes on the ogres when they're standing guard on the beach. And this is something that is successful on all of the ogres, even Junior, who has 2 knives in his eyeballs and can't see anything. This was a great opportunity to give Junior a little bit of character development, but we got nothing. They squandered it. 9. The ogres also have an entire city of their own. So why were the ogres implied to all be living in the same treehouse with Grogda and Pops? Why weren't they back in the ogre city? And for that matter, why aren't Grogda and Pops? Because the person that was a threat to Pops was Grogda's now deceased husband. I know it's a series full of gags and such, but make it make sense. 10. And how is it that Pops ends up being Returno? As they said in the first episode, no elf has ever come back, not even Returno. And the elves are definitely a small, tight-knit community, so they knew who Pops was this entire time. It's not like he snuck in as an elf from another colony. Just what the heck? Number 11, the weird little house symbol that we see all over the Dreamland Castle and underground with the Trogs. That turns out to be made up of Bean's buck teeth, Lucy's pointy tail, and the fuzzy ball on Elfo's hat. But that's only explained as a quick blur in the final episode's opening credits, and it isn't even covered in the series. There's no canonical reason for why that symbol is. And it turns out that that symbol that is literally everywhere around the castle was somehow partially hidden and was really supposed to be the face of a secret queen that the Trogs were waiting for. Like, what? None of that made any sense. The trio of Bean, Lucy, and Elfo were supposed to be the Trog saviors, but they never did anything for them. And if the issue is that the true symbol was the secret queen's face, and that things had just gotten covered up over time, then why did Lucy, Bean, and Elfo have a reaction to the crystals that made the Trogs go, ooh, the saviors? Number 12. In fact, if anybody is the Trog saviors, it's Alva Gunderson. Alva is the one that ultimately takes the Trogs to the moon, albeit by accident, but that is what the Trogs wanted most in the world, apparently. And evidently, the Trogs can also breathe in space, even though Alva Gunderson is clearly expressed as being about to die. And the Trogs are supposed to be immortal, and they don't have brains anymore, and it's a whole really weird, convoluted thing, but part of what kept them immortal was sipping and spinning off of these stalactite tears from heaven. They don't have that up on the moon. So what's going on here? How are they going to survive? Just again, what? 13. Then we have this whole angle of the secret goo being, how is it they described it, like pureed Trog brains, which somehow made even less sense than anything else going on. I'd have rather had no explanation for the goo than get, hey, this magical substance is Trog brains, and the Trogs still stay alive without a brain because they sip and spin on these stalactites, which are actually teardrops from heaven. What even was that nonsense? You want to say the goo is made from Trog brains? Okay, I'll go with it, fine, whatever. But then you're gonna try to sell me that the Trogs are also these zombies that are living off of teardrops? Like, you're reaching too hard to try and connect dots that don't want to connect. 14. Not to mention, what Dagmar was made 0 sense. At one point she says she's a witch, but she also keeps raving about how she has powers and immortality now. And even though one drop of the underground crystal water gave her these amped up powers, she also needed to get a secret of immortality from the Trogs too. And also, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall Dagmar sipping and spinning to get the little teardrop from heaven. Yet at the end of the series, she just scoops out her own brain and keeps going like no big deal. If her mom wore the crown, and she did that successfully, as they said, there had to be more to it than scooping out her brain. Otherwise, they would have scooped out Jerry's brain before they screwed in the crown to him and turned him into, quote, a permanent 10-year-old. Again, it's like they had a series Bible, and then they got a new showrunner who just pitched that in the trash and said, nah. 15. Going back to Alva Gunderson, by leaps and bounds, he had the most disappointing story arc of the series. Based on season 3, I had been expecting Alva to be in somehow on the debt to hell, and that he had some big double cross going on, and that's why he needed to marry Bean before Satan could. And with the elevator to hell being in Dreamland and having all of this hidden tech in Dreamland, that made more and more sense. But apparently all Alva wanted was some magical goo so that he could fuel a rocket to the moon, and he only wanted Bean because her powers would allegedly keep him alive in space, even though there had been no testing of this notion. Absolutely no basis to say that Bean can breathe in space. Girl can't even breathe underwater. How's she gonna breathe in space? Please, somebody, if you saw it, tell me. Where is Alva's sudden motivation to go off to the moon? It just came out of nowhere in part 5. 16. Furthermore, the elevators to hell are never explained. But there is a sign on some random bus, and it says something about elevators to hell being a great way to do a burial plan. And that sign is never talked about. The camera never gets close in on it. It's treated like just another goofy sight gag, just like every other sign in Steamland. Is that truly Alva's only connection to all of this? He built an elevator and found out, ooh, it goes to hell. And how did Dagmar even find Alva to strike a deal with him to build an elevator down to hell from Dreamland? And why did Alva start a fake religion in Dreamland? If his goal was just to spy on Bean and see what was going on there, he already had the cameras in King Zog and Prince Derek's crowns. Like, what did you need a religion for? Make it make sense. 17. Slimy the giant octopus never comes back. He would have made a great addition to any of the battles in part 5, but instead we get another throwaway line from Derek saying that Slimy ate a really drunk captain and died of rum poisoning. What the actual heck? Why make breadcrumbs with the flippin' octopus if you refuse to follow through on it? There are symbols all over Dreamland with the octopus tentacles. How did that not tie back in somewhere? 18. Freckles, who I've theorized about before after he started haunting my dreams, he randomly makes a claim that he's Bean's brother, and that he's been told since he was a baby that he was going to be king someday. And while I'm all for an episode where Dagmar and Zog had a son, and that was the firstborn, that was the heir, and that baby died under mysterious circumstances because Dagmar needed to have a queen of Dreamland for the debt to hell to be paid off. And so then her son was secretly turned into the puppet Freckles for, decades. And he had to sit and watch Bean live her life as a human through the shop window. That would have been dark and twisted and amazing, and I would have totally been there for it. But no one actually stops to establish or confirm anything. Freckles claims that he's Bean's brother. He starts calling Dagmar Ma, and that's it. Dagmar doesn't even acknowledge being called Ma, and Zog doesn't give us any kind of tragic backstory about a firstborn son not making it. There's nothing! And Freckles also claims to be a real boy when he's sitting on the throne, which is blatantly untrue. So was he also lying about being Bean's brother? Because he kept harping on Dagmar being his mother. I don't even know. I don't know what's going on. 19. Also, while we never truly learn who Freckles is, who is inside him, we do find out that Cloyd and Becky are ruling Maru as puppets, even though they'd been set on fire in part 4. So did Cloyd and Becky just decide to abandon their bodies back at the puppet shop? And if we went in the puppet shop, would their lifeless zombie corpses just be sitting there waiting? Or was the switch from human to puppet permanent? I assumed it wasn't permanent, and I thought I saw Cloyd and Becky go between doll form and human form. And especially after seeing Cloyd and Becky switch into puppets so casually, why would you do that if that was permanent? But in part 5, Bean seems to have burned Cloyd and Becky to death, and for some reason it actually worked that time. And the dastardly duo pretty silently take the burning with little complaint. What? If you're dying right here and now, what? Just another plot point that made absolutely no sense. 20. I am so dissatisfied with Dagmar's final comeuppance. Dagmar's basically trapped under a crystal. She is potentially there for all eternity, to the best of our knowledge at least. And then Satan comes in, snaps his fingers, and Dagmar is hanging in a wooden cage off the cliffside of Dreamland Castle with Freckles. But she's still immortal, right? And she's still a witch with a huge amount of powers, correct? So Satan's plan is that he's going to contain Dagmar forever in a wooden, wide open, dangly cage. Even if Dagmar can't get out for a while, and we have no reason to believe that she can't, but even if Dagmar is truly stuck in that cage with Freckles and she can't get herself out, what happens once the wood eventually rots away? She just falls into the ocean and swims back to shore, right? The woman has no brain now. She is super powerful and she's immortal. What is keeping her in this very simplistic cage? She could even get Freckles to climb up the rope and chew it apart or something. Like, that is not a suitable prison for her. 21. Lucy dying served absolutely no purpose except to make a wish to bring Mora the mermaid back to life. But, Jerry could have done that all on his own. It literally felt like the writers didn't know what to do with Lucy, and they just tossed that character aside haphazardly. 22. Mora's death is one of the weirdest, most unexplained moments in the show for a lot of reasons. Because Bad Bean, out of nowhere, got the power to make Bean hallucinate, which was never used before or after in the waking world. And then, I believe it was in season 4 that we saw all of those skeletons of elves and humans and mermaids on that same beach where they were fighting. And one of those skeletons looked just like Mora in the same type of armor with a dagger stuck in the exact same place. And when Bean touched that knife in part 4, she had this vision of a battle where lightning powers essentially killed everyone present. I had assumed that that was going to circle back to be the origin of Bean's lightning powers, like from one of her ancestors and some deal with the devil, something like that. You know, something that kind of made sense with the context of the show. But no, apparently Bean having that vision was not a flashback, but a glimpse into the future. And I'm even willing to be a good sport about that. But then, before the battle starts, Elfo has a line about how much better that beach looks without all the skeletons on it. So, where did the skeletons go? They had been there for decades, if not hundreds of years at that point. Who knew about them to deal with the bodies? And why did the present day battle end up with the same bodies in the same positions? I'm a theorist by trade, and I can't come up with any way to fill in that plot hole. For all intents and purposes, Bean and Elfo came across a graveyard of skeletons laying on that beach that were from the future, not the past. And that makes absolutely no sense at all. Huge, senseless, gaping plot hole. 23. Elfo going back in time and shooting himself with an arrow was terrible. That moment was a catalyst for so many other plot points to explode forward. And Elfo's shooter could have been a Trog or a henchbot or anyone that would have thickened the plot. Instead, Elfo just makes a time paradox, which really doesn't make a lot of sense to begin with, and then he breaks the crystal ball so that nobody else can use that MacGuffin. We were told directly that everything that happened was done to make sure that Bean became the Queen of Dreamland. All for this debt to hell to be repaid. But this pivotal moment of Elfo dying was just Elfo himself messing with the space-time continuum? That was terrible writing. There's no excusing it. 24. Also, Elfo's name does not get crossed out of the Book of the Dead, even though he actually did die in part 1. Bean's name gets crossed out. Dagmar gets crossed out. Lucy gets crossed out, even though Lucy is currently dead and in heaven, but not Elfo, who escaped from hell. I know that's a tiny petty point, but still, all these little things add up. 25. Why is God's head a light bulb? I was prepared for that to equate back to Alva and Steamland and some giant con with the henchbots, but it really held zero significance. No payoff whatsoever when it could have been some greater Matrix type of thing. 26. Bean and Mora run away to live naked on Mermaid Island without saying goodbye to anybody? And they act like Bean leaving is such a permanent thing, but don't forget that Mermaid Island is just a short boat trip from Dreamland. They literally chartered a one-night party barge to take them back and forth to Mermaid Island in part 1. So why are they making the distance to Mermaid Island seem so final in part 5? Bean and Elfo could still hang out. It's not like you get in a relationship and your entire life stops forever. 27. We don't properly go back to Twinkletown to resolve anything there. We go to the insane asylum, but Twinkletown had a king and queen that were in on this scheming or trying to steal magic from Dreamland or something, but we don't even check in on them. We don't know what's going on or why they were in the equation at all. 28. I was also not very happy that Merkimer ends up with Miss Moonpence, who also turns out to be a talking pig. Huh? Why can Miss Moonpence talk? And did the show forget that we've already seen her arm and it was really far away from her eye? I would like to explain this away by suggesting that the other door that opened with the arm in it was somebody else who's enslaved in the walls. But between nothing being referenced and Miss Moonpence not bumping into anyone when she comes out for her big piggy reveal, I kind of think the writers just forgot that they showed her body parts before. 29. After so many years of the elves wanting their castle back, which is Dreamland, the king of the elves just wanders off and doesn't want to deal with it. He's like, I'm going back in the woods. Then why even be a part of this for all these years to begin with? I know he was injured in the war, and maybe that's supposed to be the big difference maker, but he didn't even try to appoint his own daughter as the successor to Dreamland or anything. It's so weird. Number 30. Speaking of which, the whole Mop Girl story arc felt forced and out of place. Remember back when Game of Thrones put the one wrong character on the Iron Throne and that made everyone furious? Like there were 20 characters who could have sensibly gotten the throne and we would have been happy enough with it, but they chose the left field choice that nobody would have predicted, because he was never a contender. That's what they did with Mop Girl, aka Miri. Suddenly she's at least part elf and she's super into Elfo when previously she had a little bit of a thing going on with Lucy, and there was no resolution to her backstory, no reason why anybody would want to follow her as a ruler, and in previous seasons, it seemed like she was part of a real secret society that was trying to keep the Og family in power. None of it added up, and wasn't there like a broom boy or somebody else who was male that she was working with in one of the scenes? Did I imagine that, or is that another plot point that the writers forgot? Finally, 31. Why is Chaz in Steamland now, running the show? How is that gratifying? How did he even find that place? And why would anybody listen to Chaz or put him in power? I would accept this as a gag ending if any other piece of part 5 made sense, but this was just one more nail in the coffin of bad writing. Nobody really cares what happened to Chaz, and the people of Steamland certainly don't deserve that. Oh, and number 30 whatever, the lost elven throne under Dreamland Castle came alive and seemed to say something for a second. They never go back and discuss that or do anything more with that. Why was the throne alive? In summary, Matt graining, I don't even care anymore, needs to come to my house and apologize to me personally. With an ending like this, I worry that, just like Game of Thrones, the finale of the series is so upsetting and so ungratifying that Disenchantment is going to end up thrown out of our collective consciousness. Disenchantment deserved so much better than this final season gave us. And I still insist that my initial theory that the entire universe was Bender's game still running in the back of his processors, I think that sort of dream type theory would have been more palatable than the nonsense nonsense that we were given. But what do you guys think? Did I miss any plot holes that are bugging the heck out of you? Did you think part 5 was great, or did it just reinforce why you didn't like the show before? Leave me a comment and let me know, because I really want to keep talking about this series. I am just so miffed at how everything ended. I might be overthinking it, but that's literally my job. And to any of my members here on YouTube, a huge bottom of my heart thank you for all of your help and support. If you would like to become a paid channel member, there is a link in the description below. Thanks again, guys. Love you. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, "Hey, McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that?" Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos, like you, helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.